Transformation Show with me, your host, Sophia. And today, my guest is Dawn Hunter, who is a JD, MPH, CWP, and we're going to have to ask what all these letters are, is the founder of the Dawn Lab, a workplace culture strategist, keynote speaker, and host of Work is Third podcast, where she gets real about people pleasing, burnout, and mindset skills that should set you free. And we can all use some of those. A self described recovering perfectionist, so we already have something in common, and adventure enthusiast. Dawn has turned her own story of transformation into a movement, helping people redesign how they live and work. Dawn is also a traveler at heart. She collects bold experiences the way other people collect souvenirs. I love that. I know. I'm sorry, guys. I should be reading this whole thing through, but as I read it, it's not like I've never read it before, but every time I read it, it's like, oh, that. So anyway, let me continue and then we will talk to Dawn. All right. So she brings the same energy to her work, practical, joyful, and a little bit audacious. When she's not challenging workplace norms, you'll find her on a roller coaster or taking a very intentional nap. Well, welcome, Dawn. And like I said, it's not like I hadn't read your bio before, but every time I read it, I'm like, that's interesting. I can relate to that. We have so much in common. So let's get this party started. So the
Yeah.
first thing I want to ask you about, well, I know JD, but let's talk about some of the letters behind your name. Talk about the Dawn Lab and what is a workplace culture strategist?
Well, Sophia, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here to have this conversation with you. I am a JD. I'm a lawyer, and I'm licensed. I'm actively licensed in the state of Florida. But most of my career, I've done policy work. So I've worked in the health policy space. I have a master's in public health, and I'm actually certified in public health as well. And that's a field that really looks at population health and prevention. So a lot of people are familiar with medicine and they hear health and they think of healthcare. And public health is more about how we prevent disease and illness in a community and how we make entire populations of people healthy, whereas medicine is more about treating individuals and treating them after the fact. So after they've already gotten sick or ill. And so I actually combine that. I've worked as a public health lawyer for over a decade now, and that's really applying this prevention and root causes perspective to designing places, systems, and conditions for people to be healthy. So, as a workplace culture strategist, I've taken my training in public health and law to the workplace setting to say we can apply these principles of prevention to the way that we design workplaces so that employees thrive, because the data are very clear that when employees thrive, organizations thrive too.
Mhm.
And so I really want to change the way that we think about work so that we focus on creating workplaces where people can thrive and recognize that work is just one part of our lives, which is part of also why I do my podcast. And I've been doing that all this work now as a consultant for 2 years, but I spent 20-ish years in public service, and I'm really excited to bring everything that I learned into this new consulting space.
Well, and I had said it before, that is really interesting. And especially when you think about public health and what it is and what it isn't. So just touching on that for a second, because our health care system really is a sick care system, as most people know, right? You go to the
Right.
doctor because you're sick, and then they give you a pill because you're sick. Nobody really wants to, okay, well, let me take that back. Not everybody wants to prevent illness because, from my perspective, there's no money to be made in healthy people. Keep them healthy, you know, and a lot of people aren't going to make the money that they're currently making by keeping people sick. So I hats off to you that you chose to be in a space where you want to keep populations healthy and educate people around how you can be healthy, how you can prevent illness, and, the things that you can do to actually take care of yourself so that you really don't need to go get medical attention. And no, by far, I am not saying people shouldn't get medical attention. If that is what you need, then please go get medical attention. However, if you can keep yourself healthy so that you can keep your medical attention to a minimum, I think you're doing great. So let me step off of my little soapbox here and turn it back over to you.
Well, I was like, "Well, let me get on to my soapbox for a moment." I have strong opinions about the healthcare system. I've been on the marketplace a couple of times in my life. I've had private insurance. I've had no insurance. And that's all shaped my perspective. But one thing I will say is I actually want to push back on the idea that there's no money to be made in people being healthy. I think it's about shifting our values. Because the reality is that even people who are healthy, eventually throughout our life course, we're going to need healthcare, right? We're going to need our teeth taken care of. We're going to need eye exams. We're going to because of the way that we live, we're going to need our hearts checked and our internal systems checked. So you're still going to the doctor. I think public health just says we don't have to wait until people get sick to intervene.
Mm,
And, you know, we want to focus on the things that will prevent people from having cardiovascular disease earlier in life or diabetes, or we want to prevent injury and violence, right, in our community. But those things still happen. So you're still going to have people seeking out healthcare, needing to see a doctor, needing to go get vaccines or get checkups for schools or sports or things like that. So I actually sometimes I used to be kind of in the boat where, the system is incentivized for people to be sick. That's probably true to some degree, but also I think we choose to operate the system that way. We could choose to operate a system that says we value keeping people healthy,
yeah,
and here's how we do that as an organization. So that's my kind of soapbox is like hospitals, especially nonprofit hospitals, have a role in keeping the community healthy, and they will still make money because people still go to the doctor.
right. Okay, so we have kind of a combined soapbox.
Yes.
So, and you're absolutely right. Because yes, is there going to come a day when nobody ever goes to the doctor? No. But the perspective that I'm coming from is that when I think about it, my mind goes directly to big pharma and
Mhm.
how they make their money, right? And some of the drugs that get pushed because they're money makers. So that's where my mind goes when I say the things I say, just to put it all in context. But I do agree that, yes, there probably isn't going to come a day when nobody's going because, yeah, we do need the checkups. We do need, the blood tests and checking our hearts to make sure that the things that we're doing to stay healthy are actually working for us.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, big pharma is a whole 'nother story, right? I mean, that's different, and the amount we have to pay for drugs in this country. Um, Side note, did you read Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green? Is it John Green?
Mm,
The author of The Fault in Our Stars? It's an excellent book, and the reason I mention it is that his perspective, he profiles, like, tuberculosis is a worldwide killer. It's not in the US, but worldwide, it is, a significant cause of death and, um, and morbidity, and he says one of the things he says is, "We have the tools to treat and to control tuberculosis, and we choose not to use them."
mm,
And I think that's really profound because we have the medicines, we have the tools, we have the resources, but we have to value people being healthy, for people to be healthy. And I say like the actions of big pharma, the actions of other industries and sectors would suggest that we don't actually value people being healthy and living full lives.
yeah. Well, I would have to agree with that because some of the things that I've seen in the news recently says to me that a lot of people just don't value people. Forget
Yeah.
their healthcare. We just don't value people.
Yep. True. I
So,
agree.
so anyway, on a lighter note, because this is a rabbit hole that I could definitely just go down. Let's talk a little bit about your podcast and some of the things that you talk about in people pleasing and burnout and that type of thing. Because with me, when I talk about people pleasing, I'm usually talking about good girl syndrome, which is just a polite way of taking a bunch of different things that we do and calling it something. And people pleasing just happens to be one of them.
Yeah. Well, I definitely am a recovering perfectionist, as you have described yourself as well, and recovering people pleaser. For me, people pleasing is looking like putting other people's needs before my own.
Mhm.
And I've really tried to unlearn that, to say that, I have to take care of myself first before I can give my best to other people. And my podcast, Work is Third, really came out of a combination of events. But basically, when Hurricane Milton hit in 2023, we evacuated and I stayed with my brother and his family. And while we were there, I had to rearrange a lot of things on my calendar. And I remember talking to a friend and colleague who I was like, I have to reschedule, or, we might have to make some adjustments because I'm not sure if we're going to have power, et cetera. And she was like, Dawn, family, friends, work, friends, family, work. Either way, work is third. And I really appreciated hearing that from her, because the reality is, like, we're waiting for a hurricane. And it's absurd to think that I'm worried about a meeting or, a webinar or something like that when our physical safety is being threatened, or the health of our community is being threatened by this major storm. Um, but when she said that, I had already had the idea for the podcast in mind. And when she said that, I was just like, yep, that's the name of the podcast, Work is Third, because it really is about encouraging people to take exactly this approach to everything in life, to say that work is important, but it is not our whole identity.
Mhm.
And it comes rooted in my own story of leaving a toxic leader and leaving a workplace that no longer was aligned with my values, and recognizing it's okay to change. And I want to have a conversation I want to uplift conversations and stories about how people are doing that same thing. Recognizing that you can assert yourself, you don't have to please other people, that you have to take care of yourself first, and that work is not your whole life.
And interesting that you brought up work and identity, because a lot of people who I've come across and some of the women that I've worked with, their work does become their entire identity. Or uh, when I was when I was working as a therapist, I had a client who her identity was around being a mom and being a daughter. It wasn't being a woman.
Mhm.
And so we had to really reevaluate what her priorities were. And then she started to have to figure out what she liked as a woman and as her own person. And then there was somebody else that I worked with recently, and her identity was wrapped up in work. So when lost her work, it was like, well, who am I now? Because I'm not what I was doing.
I've been there. I've been in that same boat. I would say for most of my career, my my work was my identity. And that's where I got, all of my accomplishments, all of my connections, all of my money to survive on. Like, it was my life. And then I think I just came to a point where I realized that there were so many other things about myself that I wanted to nurture, that I had perhaps set aside because I was so focused on work and achieving at work. And I've really been intentional about taking a step back and saying, like you said, what does Dawn want? What do I want to be doing with my life? What will make me happy? How can I do more of that?
And well, how do you do more of that?
Well, first, I think, like you said, you have to make a list. I think you really have to sit down with yourself and say, what are the things I love to do? I've done The Artist's Way. I don't know if you are familiar with that book.
I have it.
Yeah, I've
But
done it
here in my
twice.
location, but I do have it.
Good book, great book. I've done it twice in my life, 20 years apart, so that was kind of an interesting experience. But one of the things that the author does, Julia Cameron does, is encourage you to think about, what would you do if there were no limits, or if circumstances had been different when you were younger. What would your life and career look like? And you write down all the jobs that you might have want to do at some point in your life. And so for me, I love books, and so it's like librarian, and I love to dance. So dancer, musician, artist, whatever. And then she encourages you to go out and find some small way to do that thing. So maybe I'm not going to be a librarian, but could I go to my local library and participate in an activity? Yeah. Or maybe I'm not going to be a professional dancer, but can I take a dance class? Yes, I can do that. And so that's how I started and have always kind of pushed myself to say, I love these things. How do I go find some small way to do them in my life? So that's one of the things that I do. The other thing is I make a list of values. This is something I encourage everyone to do is to write out the things that you value and to think of how they show up in your life. So if you value this is twofold. So one is it to like is your job aligned with your values, but then also is your personal life aligned with your values? For me, I value autonomy and flexibility, and so working kind of a traditional 9 to 5 job is not for me. Of course, I was, went through an entire career 20 plus years before I realized that. I've always known about myself that I love autonomy and flexibility, but I still worked in very structured jobs. And now being on my own, being a consultant and having my own company, I'm able to really live those values. And importantly, if I work with people, I'm still small now, I plan to grow, but when I do work with people, I really promote that. It's flexibility and autonomy. You are just as much an expert and just as educated as I am, probably. And so, like the people who I work with, I want to recognize and respect the way that they approach work as well.
I like that. And I say that right now I'm in my yes era.
Yeah,
Because I moved to a new state and just figuring things out. So to start over, well, to start over is like a hell of a thing, right?
it
Because
is.
everything is new. There's like a ton of adjustments to make. But I'm also at a point where it's like, yes, here are the things that I used to like to do. Do I still like to do them? Are there things that I might like to do that I don't know that I'd like to do? So if something comes up that, is not normally in my wheelhouse, I'll say yes and go check it out. It's like, do I like it? I'll give it a chance. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Because I started taking golf lessons because I'd always I don't understand golf. I don't understand the allure. I don't understand why people do it. I don't get it. So I was like, all right, well, I have an opportunity where I can go take golf lessons. Because the only thing I really knew about golf is a lot of things happen on the golf course because it is social. But the actual game itself was like, why? So having taken lessons now, I'm like, I get it. I actually get the why people enjoy this, because well, I think for a lot of people it's the competition with others and it is the socialization. But when I got out there, it was like, okay, can I make contact? So it's like, I've made contact. And it's like, how many times can I make contact during this lesson? So then each lesson kind of became a competition with myself to see, how much contact can I make? How far can I hit it? Can I hit it further the next time? And then just different life lessons that came up for me. Um, One of the things that they tell you is keep your eye on the ball at all times. So it doesn't matter where you're swinging from. So even if the club's like way up behind you, you keep your eye on the ball. When you go to hit the ball, you keep your eye on the ball. And then as you hit the ball, you keep your eye on the ball. So for me, that was just a great analogy for whatever it is you want in life, because it's so easy to get squirreled and distracted and do all the other things. And you take your eye off the ball, you take your eye off the goal, you take your eye off the intention. And all of a sudden, you don't know what happened, but things aren't going the way you anticipated. So just having that, sometimes they say you never know where your messages are going to come from. But that to me was almost like divine intervention to remind me, like to keep my eye on the things that I do want, you know?
Yeah.
So I know, whole long diatribe about, but that was me saying yes. I said yes to something new. I said yes to being completely out of my comfort zone. It's like if my comfort zone is here, golf's way over there.
Yeah. I mean, I love this. One, I enjoy golf. I'm not good at it at all. But I enjoy going out. I enjoy the social aspect of it. I also enjoy the challenge of trying to hit the ball. And honestly, every time I've ever like swung and missed, it's because I took my eye off the ball. I mean, and that's a really important lesson in golf is that you have to you have to watch the ball. And you also remind me that one of the things that I did that I started doing COVID with the well, right before COVID started with a few friends of mine, and then during COVID we expanded to be more creative about it was Try It Tuesdays. And every Tuesday or every Tuesday that we could all get together, we would go out and try something new together. And we may not love it or we may know nothing about it, but we decided to go try these things as a group of girlfriends. And as a result of that, I have tried aerial silks, I've done acro yoga, I've done belly dancing, I've learned how to play pickleball. I've done tiny paintings, you know, you name it, I've probably done it, and it's been a fun way to spend time with my friends, but it was also a really cool way for us to expose ourselves to new things. Tai Chi, I learned Tai Chi, uh, and I think that's just finding those small ways to get out and try new things, and also knowing that it's okay if you don't like it, as you said,
Yeah.
like, you don't have to. It's just the point in attempting it, and then go on to the next thing if that wasn't for you.
And I love that because some of the stuff that you've listed, I've tried because I've tried belly dancing. Actually, I've tried pole dancing. I haven't done the aerial yoga yet and the silks.
Yeah. Oh, it's
I
so
keep
fun.
I keep seeing I keep seeing them on Instagram and well the bloopers. And I'm like, I wonder if that would be me. And but it's like, even if it is me, it's okay because as people are laughing at me, I will be laughing at myself.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you just do it and enjoy it. It does not matter what other people think about your experience.
And something else I wanted to try is glass blowing because that's always looked interesting to me. So yeah, there are a lot of things that I want to try. And out here, there's this cool program called I Can't. And so it's all actually, now that I'm talking about it, I need to go sign up. It's a series of different classes that you can go to. So if you're like, I can't paint, it's a painting class, or I can't do pottery, and it's a pottery class. So yeah, there's a whole list of things coming up. So yeah, thanks
Oh,
for the
that's really
reminder.
cool.
I need to go sign up.
Oh, I love the idea of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like your Try It Tuesdays. It's like and I think, I don't know, it actually might be on Tuesday. I'm not sure.
And I'm a big fan of public services, and I have participated in pottery classes and other art classes through my city's recreation centers. So if you're worried about cost, or if you want to try to fit something in, or maybe if it's accessible, looking at your city's recreation centers is a good way to try to find like low cost activities that you can try.
And one of the things that you kind of brought up from the artist way is, what would you do if? Like if money wasn't an issue, if time wasn't an issue, if whatever it is wasn't an issue. And I remember doing that. And one of the things that came up for me is, well, if I had all the time in the world and I had a bunch of money and I didn't have to work, I'd volunteer. So that just led to me volunteering with different organizations for different events, because it's like, well, I don't know that I really want to commit to volunteer every single whatever, but I will volunteer for events. So there are ways that you can take the big things and then just chunk them down and see how you can fit them into your life.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree with that approach. And I think it makes it less intimidating when you think I don't have to get lessons for sign up for lessons for 8 weeks or get a whole new gym membership. It's like you can just go to one class.
Yep.
You can watch one YouTube video.
Well, and there's that part because I think as a lot of women self-conscious. It's like, well, I don't want to go, and the perfectionist part of it. If I can't do it, I don't want to go out and try to do it. So yeah, YouTube, comfort of your own home. Try it at
Yeah,
home first. Because I've recognized that not too far from where I currently am is a pole studio, but they also do burlesque. So I'm like, well, and as I'm building my upper body strength, I may go do a burlesque class because that sounds like fun to me.
that does sound really fun. I would do that, and I haven't done that yet.
So, what are some other things like other tips that you would give people if they just, if you were coaching them? Because you did mention that you have coaching sessions and whatnot. So, if somebody was working with you, or, well, let me back that up a bit. What type of coaching do you do?
That's a good question. I was gonna say I actually don't do one-on-one coaching. I only work with teams, and organizations. And so I'll do leadership coaching, but for a team or for a group of leaders, but like with the understanding that it's applied in a team setting. And really, that's because that's me recognizing my skill set, which I would encourage everyone to think about not just what you are good at, but also what you love to do. So I would probably be a great one-on-one coach. It is not something I would enjoy doing all the time. And so
Mhm.
that is an important lesson that I had, that I've learned over time. So what I do is really coach people on leadership habits. What does it look like to lead with your values, and what does it look like to lead ethically? So I'm really spend a lot of time doing trainings and workshops around ethical leadership and inclusive leadership. And then also thinking about how do we apply what we know about employee engagement? So, what makes employees thrive? What makes workplaces healthy? And then putting that into practice. And so, I help people design around that, either through coaching, like through training programs, through better policies, through establishing employee support groups. I really help other people facilitate what will work best in their workplace, knowing
Mm,
the evidence. So I bring the expertise and say, well, here's what we know. Here's what the evidence says. Here's what the data says. Here are some programs that are options. What actually fits for your organization? So I would say it's tailored to the organization's specific needs rather than just a blanket approach. And I think that's really important because there is no one size fits all to a healthy organization. There are some things that are fundamental, which are things that we know, like belonging and inclusion and mattering at work and having dignity and being physically safe, but also psychologically safe. These are foundational in any workplace. But then when you get down to the nuance of things, it's really important that there isn't a cookie cutter approach, that you recognize what your specific workforce needs. So you're assessing that and responding to what your employees are telling you.
so, what size? I have so many questions happening in my head, but let me try narrow it down to this one first. What size companies do you work with?
I work with mid-sized to small, like small to mid-sized companies. So probably no bigger than 5,000 employees, but down to small nonprofit teams of 20 people or fewer.
Okay.
And that can really be, again, still tailored. And I like to work with a lot of different kinds of organizations. Most of my career was in public service, so I still love working with nonprofits and state and local government agencies. And I do think that some of the biggest change can happen in the corporate space. And so thinking about the ways that corporate organizations drive our behavior collectively and how they influence our attitudes toward work and culture is really important. And I think that's where some of our effort needs to be focused. When we see things in the news right now around return to office mandates or AI adoption, these are not like small nonprofits that, I mean, everybody's struggling with that, but these are not the ones that are in the news. It's like your Googles and your Amazons and all these major companies and that are saying we're going to do these things um, for our workforce without really thinking about the consequences
Mhm.
of and the effects on employees. And so I would love to, continue to hammer that message home for some of the bigger organizations out there. Hopefully that made sense.
No, well, it made perfect sense to me as, I look at what a lot of these companies want to do going forward because AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And anybody who thinks it is, well, come out from under the rock because it's not going anywhere. However, like when you decrease your workforce by a lot so that you can take those salaries to do AI stuff, yeah, you're not looking at the backlash, you're not looking at the people, you're not looking at the consequences of what's happening to them. So, one of the questions that came up for me is if you're in a company and their culture doesn't necessarily align with your values, how do you stay a good values based leader despite the culture of your company?
That's a good question, and this is also kind of the root of ethical leadership, which is how do you live in alignment with your values and how do you practice the things that you believe despite your environment? And it's a challenge when you're in an environment that does not support you or is not aligned with you. And I think that takes intentional checking in with yourself to say, to review what decisions you're making, whether or not you would change them, to have a sounding board, whether that's a partner or colleague uh, that is at your job, or maybe just someone who is in like your I have a power squad, someone who's in your squad who you can get feedback from, and
Mhm.
really being able to talk through situations. And then I think ultimately you have to decide if having a workplace that is aligned with your values is what you want or not. I mean, the longer you stay there, what you're saying is that that job is more important than your values. I mean,
Or
maybe that's
or
hard.
you could be looking for something else and you're saying staying in this job is because I have to pay my mortgage is more important than me being homeless.
Yeah, and I think this is important because these are conversations. I had a conversation with myself also leaving a job. What do I do not having full-time employment, right? And is this going to affect my ability to survive and pay my bills? And I think you have to, and I had to do this, reframe and not catastrophize. And so choosing to leave a toxic environment ultimately benefits you, right? It's good for your mental health, it's good for your physical health. Does it hurt your financial health? Maybe in the short term. And yeah, it is important to have a plan to know what you want to do. And I do think I've been a person who stayed at a job while I tried to figure out what to do next. And I think that's different than somebody that just stays in a job and doesn't try to leave, because I think that is an endorsement of the company that you're in some way. Um, but say you're actively looking, one of the things I want to encourage people to think about is that life is short. Even if you are concerned about your ability to pay your bills, is staying in this job that potentially is negatively affecting your physical and mental health, is it worth it?
Mm,
If today was your last day on earth, is this where you would want to have spent your time? And I think it's really important to remember that we do operate on limited time. Like, it feels sometimes like we have 20 years ahead of us in our career, but we none of us are promised tomorrow. And it's
right.
very hard when you're young to learn that lesson, and it's very hard even when you're older to know that lesson if you haven't really experienced something that is a threat to your existence in some way. But I think it's like the more that we can hammer home this message that like you time is not promised. Is this really how you want to spend your time? Do you in and telling yourself I deserve more, I deserve better. And that's hard, but I think you have to do it consistently. You will find what you need. I truly believe in I believe in affirmations. I believe in trying to have an abundance mindset. And that means that, yeah, I worry about paying my bills too, but I also trust that I know I have the skills and I'm resilient enough to be able to pay my bills. And
Right.
so leaving this toxic job, I'm not going to forget that I have all the skills that got me that job in the first place. I can take them somewhere else.
And I think if, well, I know you're listening. So that is something really to drive home because I don't think we, most people, and yes, I'm going to generalize this because I really believe what I'm going to say, do not want to face their own mortality, right? So they think that I have time, but you don't know how much time that you have. And sometimes you don't recognize how little time you have until you get some kind of a diagnosis that threatens your living or
Mhm.
being alive.
Right.
Or when you lose somebody that you really care about. I
Yes.
think those are the two major times when you stop and say, okay, life is short and no time is promised to me.
I agree. I do think those are really big transformative moments for people where it shifts your thinking. And but I also am really kind of fascinated by the younger generations right now who have a much different attitude toward work than we do, and who are much more willing to say like, yeah, this isn't where I want to be right now, and this isn't working for me. I'm going to go do something else.
Right.
I love that, and I respect that, and I think that's also just breaking generational patterns around what we're taught about work, what we're taught about what it means to be a professional, to be successful, and also to understand that it's okay to struggle and that you may have struggle in your life. Like, I think if you accept that, and I try to accept that, then I know that there is something brighter on the other side. I
Mm.
don't know when it will work out. I don't know all the details. I just know that sometimes struggle is a part of life, and I understand that maybe I leave this job. Yeah, maybe it's a struggle, but I'm gonna give myself a time frame. I'm gonna give myself 2 months to figure it out, or I'm gonna give myself 2 weeks or 2 years, whatever it is. Give
Hmm.
yourself time to figure it out and know that you may have to make some adjustments because of the choice that you made, but eventually you'll get back to where you wanna be.
And I really like that form of thinking because it's not doomsday. And if you always believe that, the world is a friendly place and all your needs are always taken care of, even if it doesn't look like it, like, if you have, if it's foggy out and you can only see, like 5 feet in front of you, 10 feet in front of you, and you're like, okay, I just make those 5 feet, not going to hit anything, you know, oh, it's 10 feet, not going to hit anything. And if you go through like that, just knowing that you're going to be okay, then yeah, you do come out on the other side. And I use the fog thing jokingly, but I've been in that situation where I'm driving and I don't know what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And I know that there's kind of a little ditch here on the side because I saw it. It's like, okay, just get me through to the other side of this fog without me hitting anything because I can't see in front of me. I can't see around me. So so I'm just driving, saying, just keep me out of the ditch and don't let me hit anything in front of me. I don't need to know exactly the next step, but I'm moving forward,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I've been in a whiteout driven in a whiteout, right? And same thing. I don't know. I can't see any cars. I can't see the side of the road. I you're not supposed to stop. So you're driving slowly, cautiously. You're probably anxious and scared, but also you just keep moving slowly, inching forward until you
Yeah.
get out of the snow. And that's hard, but it is something eventually you're going to get out of it. The
Yeah.
snow will eventually stop. The fog will eventually go away.
Yeah. And then when you come out unscathed, it's like, yay, thank you. And I think that's something that we don't do either. As women, a lot of times it's like on to the next thing. We don't take that moment to stop and celebrate, even the little things. You don't have to wait until it's like some huge accomplishment, an award, it could just be, wow, I woke up this morning and I actually exercised. That was cool.
Yeah.
Let's celebrate that. Or I went to a dance class and I had fun. Let's celebrate that because our bodies get used to the celebration, right? So when you do something and you celebrate, it's like Vegas. Well, no, not really like Vegas. Well, okay, let's say it's like giving a dog a treat. They do something great, you give them a treat, and their behavior changes because they're like, okay, well, if I keep doing this thing and she smiles and she gives me a treat, I'm gonna do it again. So I think it's the same thing with our bodies. When we allow our body to get used to that celebration. Oh, she did a thing. We get to celebrate. Well, let's help her do more things. And we just celebrate more. And then our nervous system, regulates and we're just in a better space. So even if the circumstances don't look amazing and we understand how we can start regulating our nervous system, just by a small celebration and taking a few deep breaths, then the body's like, oh, okay, she's safe. Let's do this again. Let's do something new. Let's do something different.
I love that analogy. We are training ourselves. We're training our brains to say this is we want to reward this behavior and this is how we want to feel. I love that.
Yep. And yeah, I just, that whole idea of just celebrating, and I have to remind myself, you know, like when I do something, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's like celebrate it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm curious of the ways that you celebrate, and some of the things that I do is I journal every day, and so I'll write in my journal, "Yay me." Um, I like to play Snoop's affirmations, and I love his speech his commencement speech where he's like, "I wanna thank me." Um, I like to just play that sometimes. I wanna thank me. And, I also have a jar where I put good memories in, and I have these little tickets next to it, and you can just write down, something good, and I do that, and then at the end of the year, we go back and look at all the tickets that we dropped in, memories from the year. And so I think it's just like you also what is your celebration routine? It doesn't have to be getting a bottle of champagne or going out to a nice dinner. It could be giving yourself 5 extra minutes in the morning, or it could be taking a nap. It can be, taking a mental health day. Like, there's so many ways to celebrate yourself. It could just be telling yourself, "I love you," and, say looking at yourself in the mirror or
Right.
something like, "I love you, and I appreciate you, and you do amazing things."
Well, and seeing that, I love that because the more we do that, the more we do that. So I do journal every day, and I have a gratitude jar. So I write
Yes.
like the little things that I'm grateful for, and I throw them in the jar. And yeah, and there are days when I need to go dump the jar and like start reading stuff. It's like today is not a good day. It's like, no, I didn't have to use my AK, but it really still wasn't good. Yeah. So let me go read some of that stuff I wrote down. So yeah, those are some of the ways that I celebrate. But even just the little like, yay. Sometimes
Yay.
just do that and just to move my body and it feels good. But yeah,
Yeah.
I love a lot of the stuff that you do too.
Yeah, and I'm thinking on this conversation, and I don't want people to think, my life has not always been easy. I have definitely overcome adversity. And in fact, my therapist recently was like, I want you to go and make a list of all the ways that you've been resilient in your life. And I think that's really important because I have overcome a lot. And I know many other people have too. So I never offer my perspective or advice or tips assuming that, like, nobody has struggles or challenges, like, we all do. I've
Mhm.
had my own, and I've overcome many, but I still am quite optimistic, and I still believe I have, I would say, an unshakable faith in my own ability to survive, and I think that's really important that, yeah, I can handle what life throws at me, and I have, right? I've survived 100% of my worst days, as the comic says, right? Like, I'm still here. I'm still kicking, I'm still doing well.
Right. And I love that you brought that up and really normalized it because I think sometimes when people just hear things, they're not, because they don't know us, it's not all in context. So it's like, no, it's not toxic positivity, but we overcome some shit. And we get to be positive about that because that in itself is a celebration of life because you got through it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I love that you say that, and, because I think it is easy without context to make assumptions, but, yeah, I really do speak from a place of lived experience, like, I've been through it. I know what it's like to struggle, but I also know what it's like to have support and to have encouragement, and and I think at times in my life when I've been depressed or when I've struggled with my mental health, having a gratitude journal and reading affirmations actually did make a difference. It took time for it to make a difference, but it did make a difference. In the beginning when I was doing my gratitude journal, when I was very depressed in college and in the years after, and when I started my gratitude journaling practice, and I remember it would be things like, "My favorite guacamole was on sale today." Um, and it was like Law& and Order. I liked the Law& and Order SVU rerun that was on today. It was real simple things, and then it started to progress, and I started to recognize there were more things to be grateful for than I realized because I was focusing so much on the negative. And it's not a practice for everyone, but it is a way to overcome some of those darker times.
Okay, so that just brings to mind when you said my favorite guacamole was on sale. So I'm in the store the other day. There is a soap that I like with a particular scent, and they'd been sold out of it for the longest while. So I'm walking down the aisle. I see the soap, and I'm like, "Oh my God, yes!" And it's as I'm picking the soap up off the shelf, and this woman passes by, and she just busts out laughing. But in that moment, I was like so freaking excited because they had the soap, they had the right scent. Because I did buy the same soap with a different scent. I'm like, I don't like this scent. So now it's in the back of the cupboard. But just, I mean, it can be something like little that seems really trivial, but every time I wash my hands now and I have this scent, it kind of just brings a smile to my face.
I love that image of you being joyful in the aisle.
And apparently I brought joy to somebody else too, because she just laughed her ass off at me. It was all good.
And what I love about that is that now she will have permission. She's not gonna say this probably consciously to herself, but now she has permission to do the same thing, right? Seeing somebody
True.
else do it lets other people know it's okay for them to do it too.
Yeah. But yeah, and I can even picture myself, and it just makes me laugh because in that moment, I was just so excited. It's like, anybody was like, "Why are you so excited? Did you?" No, they had my soap and my scent. So yeah, just
Yeah.
I'm telling that, and I'm laughing, but at the same time, it was a big deal, but it wasn't. And that also just is saying you don't have to wait for something huge. Again, it just normalize the little things. Normalize being happy about the little things because those are the things that they all add up like compound interest, right? So I've had a couple different seminars that I've been to, and people are asking us like, well, would you rather have a penny a day or like a dollar now? And a lot of people are like, well, I want a dollar now. And it's like, well, actually, if you take that penny a day, it's going to compound over time and you're going to have a whole lot more money. So if you take that same analogy and put it into your happiness quotient or your excitement quotient or just your gratitude, all those things add up over time. And then you start noticing that you are stepping into this new identity. You're stepping into the identity of a person who is happier, of a person who has kept her eye on the ball. And if you're talking to your future self, and she's like, well, this is all that I've done, and now it's your job to get here. Right? So you ask yourself every day, it's like, well, if she's already over there, what do I need to do? What small step can I take so that I step into her and she steps into me like in the present?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. It's the small things add up. And, um, yeah, I just agree with that approach and that analogy, and just thinking about being grateful for the small things, I think leads to greater joy over time.
So how can people find your podcast if they want to take a listen?
Well, I would love for people to take a listen and to let me know how you put work third, but, we're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, it's Work is Third, and, so you can find it on any of those podcast platforms, plus, all the other ones, like all the major distributors. I'm also on Instagram. I actually recently consolidated all of my accounts because I had separate accounts for my consulting, my personal Instagram, and my podcast Instagram. And then I realized that that is not putting work there. That was actually making more work for myself. So I am the Dawn Hunter on socials now, including my YouTube channel. But if you look for Work is Third, that'll pop up. And so I have video and audio of that. And
Okay.
then you can check out my website too, dawnmhunter.com, where my podcast is also, it lives there, as well as my consulting work. You can learn more about workplace culture strategy and some of the work I do there.
And that was M as in Mary?
Yes.
Okay. So donmhunter.com. Perfect. So, okay, everybody, you can listen to this on my channels and my YouTube, and you can also go over to hers and listen to uh The Work is Third. Yes?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Um, it's been such a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And
Thank you, Sophia. Yeah,
I
this
look
is great.
forward to talking to you again because this was fun.
This was fun, and I really loved the conversation. I appreciated where it went, and I would love to continue the conversation with you.
Okay, perfect.